He was a man who had always been admired in his town. People saw him as successful, confident, and charming. He had a steady job, a beautiful house, and a wife who loved him deeply. They had built a life together that many envied. They had 2 children who brought them endless joy. He was proud of his family, or at least that was what he told himself every day. But beneath the polished surface, he carried a secret, a longing, a desire that he tried to ignore but which grew stronger with time. It started innocently enough. She was someone he met through work, someone vibrant, exciting, and different from the calm and steady life he had at home. At first, their conversations were harmless. They laughed about things at the office, shared ideas, and slowly the lines between professional and personal blurred. He told himself it was just attention, nothing more. But then he started looking forward to seeing her, thinking about her long after he left the office. He knew he was stepping into dangerous territory, but he convinced himself that he could handle it. Eventually, their meetings became more frequent, and the feelings he tried to suppress could no longer be denied. He felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. The thrill, the excitement, the passion, it was intoxicating. At home, he still loved his wife, but he felt trapped in routine. His children, innocent and trusting, never suspected the storm brewing behind closed doors. He convinced himself that he was making choices for his happiness, believing that life was too short to deny what he wanted. When she told him she was pregnant, the reality of his choices hit him in ways he could not ignore. Suddenly, the fun and excitement were mixed with responsibility, with consequences he had never fully considered. He thought about his wife, about the life he had built, but he also felt a deep sense of attachment to this child. It was his, undeniably, and that bond tugged at him in a way he had not experienced before. He knew he could not keep it a secret forever. The moment of truth was approaching. His wife noticed the change in him first. He was distant, distracted, and restless. The warmth and laughter that once filled their home were replaced by tension and unease. She asked questions, gently at first, and then more urgently as his evasions grew harder to believe. She was not a woman who ignored signs, and soon she uncovered the truth that he had tried so hard to hide. The affair, the pregnancy, everything, in one moment.
Ow.
The life they had built together began to crumble. The confrontation was painful. More so because of the man he had been and the man he had become. His wife's tears, the look of betrayal in her eyes, the way their children clung to her, it was overwhelming. He tried to explain, to justify, but words felt hollow. He had made his choice, and now there was no turning back. He left with the woman and the unborn child, believing that this was the path to happiness. He thought the pain would fade with time, that life would adjust to this new reality. But what he did not realize was that the consequences of betrayal lingered longer than anyone expects. The children he left behind were confused and hurt. They could not understand why their father had abandoned them for someone else. Their mother tried to shield them, to explain in ways that were gentle yet honest. She told them that he was making mistakes, that life sometimes led people down the wrong path, but that it was not their fault. They cried, they asked questions, and slowly they learned to live with the absence of someone who was supposed to be their protector. Meanwhile, he tried to settle into his new life. The excitement of starting fresh was real, but it was mixed with guilt, anxiety, and moments of doubt. The child grew inside her, and he found himself feeling a sense of responsibility he had not anticipated. Yet, no amount of joy from this new life could completely erase the shadow of the family he had left behind. In quiet moments, he would think of his first children, wonder if they were hurting, and sometimes feel a pang of regret he tried to bury deep inside. Life continued, as it always does, pushing forward even when hearts are broken. He moved to a new city, bought a new house, and tried to create a stable environment for his new family. He wanted to be a good father, and he loved the little boy who entered his life. There were moments of happiness, laughter, and pride. He cherished his son in ways that made him feel fulfilled, yet there was always an undercurrent of something missing. The life he had left behind was a ghost that haunted him in fleeting moments, the birthday parties he missed, the bedtime stories he could not give, the milestones he could only imagine from a distance. At the same time, His former wife worked tirelessly to rebuild her own life. She returned to her passions, focused on raising their children with love and guidance, and tried to fill the emptiness left by his absence with strength and resilience. The children grew, each carrying the memory of a father who had once been their hero, but who had also become a stranger. Their love for him did not vanish, but it was accompanied by hurt and confusion that lingered. Beneath the surface, he sometimes wondered if he had made the right decision. The new life was everything he had wanted on the surface. He had love, family, and the thrill that had been missing before. But he also felt the weight of the years lost with the children he abandoned. Guilt settled in quietly, manifesting in small ways: a missed birthday, a forgotten school event, a phone call he never made. The joy of the new life was shadowed by the absence of what he had left behind, and the realization slowly grew that choices have consequences that no one can escape. As the years passed, he became a figure of respect in the city he moved to. People admired his dedication to his son and his new family, unaware of the complexity of his past. Yet within the walls of his home, he sometimes faced the quiet questions he could not answer. His son asked about family, about the world beyond their home, and he struggled to explain without revealing too much. The tension between what was right and what was done weighed heavily on him. Every success, every achievement, was tinged with the silent acknowledgement of the life he had disrupted. He thought about the possibility of reconciling with the past, but fear and pride held him back. Could he face the family he had left behind? Could he confront the hurt and anger he had caused? The thought was both terrifying and tempting. He imagined the faces of his children, now grown, and wondered how they would look at him if they ever knew the full story. These thoughts haunted him more than he cared to admit, but he pushed them aside, convincing himself that the past was behind him at night. When the house was quiet and the world outside moved on, he sometimes sat alone, reflecting on the choices he had made. He thought about love, loyalty, and the fragility of trust. He realized that happiness was not just about passion and excitement. It was also about the quiet bonds that hold families together. The small moments that create memories, the unwavering presence of a parent. He had chosen excitement over stability, desire over responsibility, and the consequences were etched deeply into the lives of everyone involved. Yet, in his heart, he knew that life was unpredictable. Time changes everything. People grow, wounds heal, and paths that seem closed can sometimes reopen. He could not predict the future, and he could not undo the past. All he could do was live with the choices he had made, try to be a better father to the son he had, and hope that somehow, one day, the damage could be mended in ways he could not yet see. The stage was set for a life filled with both joy and regret, a journey that would test his character, challenge his understanding of love, and eventually lead to a reckoning he could not ignore. For now, he lived each day trying to balance the happiness of the present with the shadows of the past, unaware that the story of his first family was far from over, and that the next chapter would arrive when he least expected it. He settled into his new life slowly, trying to adjust to the rhythm of a home that was built around a secret, a choice he had made, and a child he now had to care for. The little boy was lively and full of curiosity. Every day brought laughter, small challenges, and moments that made him feel both proud and terrified at the same time. He wanted to be the best father he could be, but sometimes he wondered if being the best was enough to make up for everything else he had left behind. In the mornings, he would wake early, preparing breakfast, helping his son with his school routine, and making sure the home felt like a place of safety and comfort. He wanted his son to know love, security, and stability, things he had once taken for granted. But even in the midst of this new life, shadows of the past haunted him. He could not escape the memory of the children he had abandoned, the wife whose heart he had broken, and the life he had left behind. Every success, every smile was tinged with the knowledge that part of him still belonged to a life that he could never return to. The woman he had chosen to be with remained a constant in his life. She was caring, supportive, and deeply devoted to the child. She never pressed him to forget his past or to reconcile with his former family. She understood the complexity of the situation and gave him space to wrestle with his own feelings. Yet their relationship was not without its tensions. There were days when guilt would surface, and the weight of his choices made him irritable or withdrawn. He knew it was unfair to her and the child, but emotions were not easily controlled, and he struggled to maintain the balance between joy and regret. He threw himself into work to distract himself. His career thrived in ways he had never imagined, partly fueled by a desire to prove to himself that he could succeed despite the mistakes of the past. Colleagues admired his dedication, and his reputation grew, but inside he often felt hollow. Success could not erase the nights spent lying awake, imagining the life he had left behind or the voices of the children he had abandoned, echoing in his mind. Meanwhile, his former family carried on without him. His wife faced challenges she never expected. Raising 2 children alone required patience, strength, and a resilience she never knew she had. She worked long hours to support the household, ensuring that the children had opportunities and experiences that their father would never provide. The children grew up with a mixture of love, longing, and confusion. They were smart, compassionate, and determined, but a quiet sadness lingered under the surface. They learned to cherish the moments they had with their mother, and though they missed their father, they also began to understand that people sometimes make choices that hurt others, and that life does not always turn out the way one hopes. As the years went by, his son grew rapidly. Every milestone, every achievement brought both pride and anxiety. He wanted to be present for every birthday, every first day of school, every scraped knee, and every joyful laugh. He knew he could never replace the stability of a traditional family, but he tried with all his heart to provide love, guidance, and protection. There were challenges, of course, moments of fear and doubt. He struggled to discipline, to teach, to balance kindness with rules. Yet, with every passing day, the bond between father and son grew stronger, forming memories that would last a lifetime. Despite the growing happiness with his new family, he could not ignore the nagging thoughts of the past. He heard stories occasionally through mutual friends or distant relatives about the lives of his children. They were growing into adults, finding their own paths, and living their lives without him. He wondered how they felt, whether they had forgiven him or still carried anger and hurt. The uncertainty gnawed at him, and he sometimes questioned whether he had made the right choices. Could he have stayed and tried to repair his marriage? Could he have been both a husband and a father without walking away? These questions haunted him quietly, and yet the answers seemed impossible to reach. As he focused on raising his son, he also worked to create a sense of normalcy. They went on small trips, celebrated holidays with joy, and built routines that gave the child a sense of security. He taught him about kindness, responsibility, and the importance of family. Even as he wrestled with the irony that he had disrupted one, every laugh, every hug, every bedtime story felt like a balm, a way to ease the guilt that would not fully leave him. Yet he knew that no matter how strong their bond became, the past could never be completely erased. In rare, quiet moments, he thought about what it would be like to reconnect with his former family. He imagined walking into their home, seeing his children grown, and explaining the choices he had made. He wondered if they would forgive him, if they would even want to see him. These thoughts brought both hope and fear, and he pushed them aside, telling himself that now was not the time. Life was for the living, he reminded himself, and he had a family to care for here and now. The years passed. His son continued to grow, becoming a confident and kind young boy. Friends admired the way he raised his child, aware of the complicated history that shaped his father's approach to parenting. Every success of the child felt like a small redemption, a way to prove that he could still make a positive impact despite past mistakes. Yet, there were times when he felt isolated, disconnected from a part of life that had once been his. He missed the laughter of the children he left behind, the warmth of a home that was no longer his to return to. He tried to find balance through small acts of kindness, through teaching his son the values he wished he had embodied more fully. They volunteered together, helped neighbors, and created a sense of community around them. These actions brought him some comfort, a sense that he could still contribute positively to the world despite the personal failings that weighed on him. Yet, deep inside, he could not escape the awareness that true Reconciliation with the past was still impossible without. Confronting it directly, his former wife and children continued to navigate life with a mix of resilience and longing. The children excelled in school, pursued passions, and built friendships. Yet they always carried the quiet questions about a father who had chosen another life. Their mother remained strong, shielding them from unnecessary pain, while still acknowledging the complexity of human choices. She hoped that one day, perhaps the past could be reconciled in a way that allowed her children to understand and forgive, even if only partially. As the father watched his son grow, he also reflected on the lessons he had learned. Life was unpredictable, filled with choices that could change everything in an instant. Happiness was not solely about excitement or desire, it was also about responsibility, loyalty, and the quiet love that builds over years. He began to understand that true fulfillment could not come from escaping the consequences of past actions, but from confronting them. Even if the path was painful and uncertain, despite the distance and time, a sense of anticipation began to build within him. He did not yet know when or how the past might resurface, but he could feel that life had a way of bringing people back together, even when it seemed impossible. He started to realize that reconciliation was not about erasing mistakes, but about acknowledging them, making amends where possible, and allowing space for healing. This understanding brought a new perspective, a cautious hope that one day, perhaps, the broken pieces of his life could be put together again. He continued to live with the dual realities of the life he had chosen and the life he had abandoned. He celebrated the joy and laughter of his son, while quietly carrying the weight of regret. Every day was a mix of triumph and reflection, love and longing, a delicate balance that required constant attention and self-awareness. He knew that the story of his past was not finished, that the echoes of his choices would continue to shape his future in ways he could not yet foresee. Through it all, he remained committed to being a present and loving father to his son. He nurtured his child's curiosity, encouraged his dreams, and instilled values that he hoped would guide him well in life. He understood that while he could not change the past, he could shape the future, and he devoted himself to that task with sincerity and determination. The life he had built was imperfect, but it was real, filled with love, mistakes, learning, and growth. Even as he focused on the present, he could not help but wonder what the future held. Would the children he left behind ever seek him out? Would there be a chance to heal the wounds of the past, to reconnect and rebuild trust? These questions lingered in his mind, unspoken yet persistent, shaping the way he viewed the world and his place in it. He knew that the answers would come in their own time, and he prepared himself quietly for the day when the past and present might collide in ways he could not yet imagine. The years stretched on, bringing both joy and challenge, love and reflection. He learned to cherish small victories, to appreciate the beauty of everyday moments, and to find strength in the knowledge that life is never static. Every laugh, every milestone, every tender moment with his son was a reminder that love, even when complicated, could still thrive. And yet, the story of the family he had left behind remained an unfinished chapter, a lingering presence in the background of his carefully constructed life, waiting for the moment when the next part of the journey would begin. 20 years had passed since he left his first family, and life had settled into a rhythm he had come to know intimately. He was a man of routine, devoted to his son, and accustomed to the quiet patterns that filled his days. He had moments of joy, small victories, and the laughter of a child who adored him. Yet, despite the life he had built, the past remained a constant shadow. Memories of the wife and children he had abandoned would surface unexpectedly, in quiet moments, in the laughter of strangers, or in the small details that reminded him of the family he had once held so dearly. It was on an ordinary afternoon that the unexpected news arrived. A letter carefully folded, written in a familiar handwriting, addressed to him in a way that made his heart stop. He recognized it immediately. It was from his first wife. The envelope trembled slightly in his hands as he broke the seal. Inside was a note, simple and direct, requesting a meeting. The words were calm, almost gentle, but they carried a weight that made him feel a mixture of fear, guilt, and hope. He read the notes several times, trying to understand why now after 20 years. They were reaching out at first. He hesitated. Doubts filled his mind, questions he had avoided for years now demanding attention. What would they say? Would they blame him, confront him, or even refuse to see him? Could he face the children he had not known as adults, the lives he had missed? The birthdays, graduations, and milestones he had abandoned? His mind raced, and yet beneath the fear, a fragile thread of hope stirred. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was a chance to make amends, to reconnect, and to heal some of the wounds he had caused. He spent hours preparing himself. He walked through the house, imagining the moment of reunion. He thought of the children he had left behind, their faces frozen in memory as little ones, and tried to picture the adults they had become. The imagination was both comforting and terrifying, offering glimpses of the past while emphasizing the distance that time had created. He rehearsed what he might say, the apologies he must make, the explanations he could offer. Yet, he knew that words alone could never fully repair the damage. Only open the door to understanding. His son noticed the change in him immediately. He could sense the tension, the quiet intensity in his father's eyes, and the way he moved through the house with a restlessness he had never seen before. Questions were asked, simple ones at first, and then more direct. As children often sense the importance of things before adults articulate them, he chose honesty, carefully sharing the news that his father's past family wanted to see him. The boy listened, curiosity and concern mingling in his eyes, understanding that this was a moment of significance for the man he loved deeply. The days leading up to the meeting were filled with anticipation and anxiety. He thought about the lives his first children had built, their experiences, their happiness, and their potential anger. Would they welcome him or turn away? Could forgiveness be possible after 20 years of absence? The questions were endless, and the uncertainty gnawed at him, creating sleepless nights and restless mornings. Each moment of preparation felt like walking a tightrope between hope and fear, excitement and dread. Finally, the day arrived. He drove to the meeting place, his heart pounding with each passing mile. Memories of the past swirled in his mind, vivid and unrelenting. He thought about the wife whose trust he had betrayed, the children whose lives he had disrupted, and the consequences of choices he had made so long ago. He rehearsed his words silently, knowing that no matter what he said, the truth of his actions would always remain at the forefront. The reunion began with awkwardness, the kind that comes from years of absence and unspoken pain. The children he had not seen in 2 decades were no longer little ones. They were adults with their own stories, struggles, and achievements. Their eyes, sharp and observant, searched his face for honesty, for traces of the man they remembered and the man they had never truly known. Emotions ran high, a mixture of resentment, curiosity, and a cautious willingness to understand. The first words were spoken carefully, measured. As each person navigated the delicate terrain of the past and present, as they spoke, the stories of the years unfolded. His former wife shared the challenges she had faced, the resilience she had built, and the love she had given to their children despite the absence of their father. The children spoke of their achievements, their struggles, and the moments when they had longed for his presence. Each word was a reminder of the passage of time and the impact of choices made long ago. He listened, often silently, absorbing the depth of the hurt and the strength of those he had left behind. There were moments of tension, sharp as flint, when old wounds were touched, when anger and hurt surfaced unbidden. Yet there were also moments of connection, glimpses of shared memories, and the quiet acknowledgement that despite everything, family bonds remain. Laughter occasionally broke through, tentative at first, as they recalled small events from the past, the kind of memories that endure even in the absence of daily presence. The balance of emotions was delicate, shifting between pain and warmth, confrontation and reconciliation. He realized more deeply than ever that forgiveness is not instantaneous. It is a process, a journey that requires patience, empathy, and humility. He could not expect the children to forget or to immediately embrace him as their father. He could only offer honesty, remorse, and a willingness to rebuild trust, step by step. The awareness of this reality was both humbling and motivating. Reinforcing the importance of approaching each interaction with care and respect, the conversation continued for hours, moving from the past into the present. They shared stories of life, of achievements and failures, of moments of joy and moments of sadness. Slowly, barriers began to soften, replaced by curiosity, cautious acceptance, and the tentative beginnings of connection. He observed how much the children had grown, how their experiences had shaped them, and how resilient they had become despite the absence of a father. He felt a mixture of pride, regret, and awe. Recognizing the strength they had developed and the love their mother had nurtured his son from the new family, observed quietly, sensing the significance of the moment, yet respecting the space needed for healing. The boy's presence was a reminder that life continues, that love can exist in multiple forms, and that families are complex. He watched his father navigate emotions he could only begin to understand. Witnessing the courage required to confront the past and the humility needed to accept it, the moment was profound, a silent lesson in empathy, patience, and the enduring power of connection. By the end of the day, the first steps toward reconciliation had been taken. There was no sweeping resolution, no instant forgiveness. But there was a sense of progress, a fragile hope that the bonds of family could be renewed. The past could not be erased, but the willingness to face it openly and honestly created a pathway for healing. He left the meeting with a mix of exhaustion, relief, and cautious optimism, knowing that the journey had only begun and that time, effort, and sincerity would be required to nurture the fragile Reconnection. As he returned home, he reflected on the experience, the weight of 20 years pressing heavily on his mind. He realized that life is a series of choices, some of which carry consequences far beyond what one can anticipate. He understood that true reconciliation requires more than words, it demands actions, patience, and a genuine commitment to change. The day had been a beginning, a first step in a journey that would test his character, challenge his emotions, and ultimately provide an opportunity for redemption and growth. He shared some of the experience with his son, carefully navigating the complexity of the situation in words a child could understand. The boy listened, wide-eyed, sensing the gravity of the moment, and offered simple support in ways only children can. His presence was a grounding force, a reminder that life moves forward, that love can coexist in different forms, and that every moment provides an opportunity to learn and grow. The father understood that the days ahead would be filled with more meetings, more conversations, and more emotional work. There would be moments of difficulty, setbacks, and challenges, but also moments of connection, understanding, and shared joy. He embraced the uncertainty, recognizing that the path to reconciliation is rarely linear, yet profoundly meaningful. The experience had reminded him that life's greatest lessons often emerge from the most painful choices, and that the courage to face them defines the strength of character. As night fell, he sat quietly, reflecting on the day's events. The shadows of the past were no longer distant, they were present, tangible, and demanding attention. Yet, within that presence was also hope. A fragile but real sense that the family he had once broken might one day be whole again, even if in a new form. The anticipation of what was to come filled him with a mixture of nervousness and excitement, a reminder that life is unpredictable, full of challenges, and yet capable of profound renewal. He knew that this was only the beginning, that 20 years of absence could not be mended in a single day, but that the willingness to engage, to listen, and to act with honesty and humility had opened a door that had long been closed. The future was uncertain, the road ahead complex, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The unexpected news had shifted the course of his life, reminding him that family, love, and forgiveness are powerful forces that endure even when tested by time, distance, and mistakes. The day of the reunion arrived with a mix of tension, excitement, and uncertainty. He woke early, heart racing, hands slightly trembling. After 20 years, he was about to see his first children again, to confront the past he had avoided for so long. He prepared himself mentally, rehearsing words, imagining reactions, and bracing for emotions that might overwhelm him. Every memory, every regret, every hope surged through him as he made his way to the meeting place. When he arrived, they were already there. His former wife stood slightly apart, calm but composed, a mixture of strength and vulnerability in her stance. Beside her were his children, grown into adults, confident and self-assured, yet carrying traces of the hurt from years of absence. Their eyes met his, sharp and searching, as if measuring the man who had once been their father. The air was thick with anticipation. Each moment heavy with the weight of unspoken words and lingering pain. The initial greeting was cautious. Politeness masked a storm of emotions, anger, curiosity, disappointment, and longing all intertwined. He spoke first, his voice steady but soft, offering apologies that felt both necessary and inadequate. He explained, not to justify, but to acknowledge the choices he had made and the pain they caused. He listened intently as they responded, their voices a mixture of confrontation and restraint, sharing the stories of their lives without him, the struggles they faced, and the ways they had grown despite the absence of a father. The conversation moved slowly, like a fragile dance, each word measured and deliberate. Memories of the past were recalled, small, significant moments that had been frozen in time, now reshaped by years of separation. Laughter emerged occasionally, tentative and surprising, as they reminisced about moments that had endured in memory despite the distance. Tears were shed quietly, glances exchanged that spoke volumes, and a sense of connection began to take root, fragile but unmistakable. He noticed how much his children had changed. Their faces, once familiar, now carried the marks of adulthood wisdom, resilience, and experiences that had shaped them into who they were. He was struck by the strength and independence they had developed, realizing that much of it had been forged without his presence. Pride mingled with regret, a complex emotion that left him both humbled and awed. He saw the echoes of himself in them, and yet they were distinctly their own, a testament to the nurturing love their mother had provided. Throughout the reunion, moments of tension emerged. His children were not quick to forgive, and rightly so. Questions were asked sharply, challenging him to confront the reality of his absence. He responded honestly, acknowledging mistakes, expressing remorse, and avoiding excuses. The dialogue was difficult, at times painful, but it was necessary. The air was charged with raw emotion, the kind that only decades of separation and unresolved hurt can create. Yet, within that intensity, a space for understanding began to form. As the hours passed, the initial stiffness softened. Conversations shifted from the past to the present, from grievances to shared experiences. He learned about their careers, passions, relationships, and the small victories that defined their adult lives. They spoke about their dreams and disappointments, their fears and joys, revealing layers of their personalities he had never known. He shared stories of his own life, his successes, failures, and the lessons he had learned, offering transparency that invited connection without expecting immediate forgiveness. His son, from the new family, watched quietly, observing the dynamics, sensing the importance of the moment without fully understanding every nuance. He could feel the emotions in the room, the intensity of long-held feelings being navigated delicately. His presence was a reminder that life continues, that love exists in multiple forms, and that the past, no matter how painful, can be approached with honesty and openness. The boy absorbed the experience, learning an unspoken lesson in empathy, patience, and the complexity of human relationships. Gradually, moments of genuine warmth emerged. Shared laughter at old memories, small gestures of kindness, and subtle expressions of care indicated that the bonds of family, though strained, were not entirely broken. They began to recognize the sincerity in his words, the remorse in his tone, and the desire to reconnect that had brought him here. The barriers that had separated them for so long started to shift, replaced by tentative steps toward understanding and reconciliation. During the day, They walked through the neighborhood where he had once lived, visiting places that held memories for all of them. He pointed out familiar spots, recalling events from the past. While his children shared what they remembered and what they had learned since, the act of walking through these familiar streets together created a shared experience, bridging the gap between past and present. It was a subtle but powerful moment, one that reminded them all of the continuity of life and the resilience of familial bonds. By afternoon, the atmosphere had changed. The intensity of confrontation gave way to moments of reflection and quiet conversation. They discussed hopes for the future, possibilities for rebuilding relationships, and ways to create new memories together. He expressed a willingness to participate in their lives fully, without expectation, acknowledging that trust and connection must be earned over time. His children listened, some cautiously optimistic, others still guarded, but all aware that this was a pivotal moment in their shared history. The emotional journey continued into the evening. They shared a meal, something simple yet significant, a ritual that symbolized togetherness. Conversation flowed more naturally, laughter became more frequent, and the tension that had dominated the day eased. He observed the nuances of their interactions, noting how much they had grown, how their personalities had developed, and how resilient they had become. Each smile, each gesture of consideration, each shared story contributed to the gradual healing of old wounds. As night fell, he reflected on the day's events with a mixture of exhaustion and fulfillment. The reunion had not solved everything. Forgiveness was not instant, and trust would take time to rebuild. Yet, the experience had opened doors that had been closed for 2 decades, creating opportunities for connection, understanding, and shared growth. He realized that reconciliation is a process, one that requires patience, empathy, and consistent effort. The first steps had been taken, and they were meaningful beyond measure. He returned home, feeling the weight of the day and the significance of the progress made. He knew the journey was far from over, but the tentative bridges that had been built offered hope. He shared his reflections with his son, carefully explaining the importance of patience, understanding, and respect in relationships. The boy listened attentively, absorbing lessons that transcended the specific circumstances and applied to life in general. The experience reinforced the value of empathy, the power of communication, and the resilience of human connection. In the days that followed, he thought frequently about the reunion, replaying conversations, recalling gestures, and considering the emotions that had surfaced. He recognized the depth of hurt caused by his absence, the courage of his children and former wife in facing him, and the potential for rebuilding bonds over time. He understood that healing is not linear, that setbacks may occur, and that true reconciliation requires ongoing commitment and effort. The day had been a beginning, a pivotal moment in a long journey of emotional growth and familial repair. The father began to make plans for continued engagement with his first family. He proposed visits, shared experiences, and opportunities for meaningful interaction. He approached these plans with humility, avoiding assumptions or expectations, understanding that trust must be nurtured gradually. Each interaction was viewed as a chance to reinforce sincerity, demonstrate reliability, and foster connection. The focus was on creating positive experiences that could contribute to the healing process over time. Throughout the experience, he reflected on the lessons of life, love, and responsibility. He understood that choices have long-lasting consequences, that forgiveness requires courage, and that relationships, once broken, can be mended with effort, honesty, and patience. He recognized the importance of presence, consistency, and emotional availability, qualities he had not always exhibited but now sought to embody fully. The journey of reconciliation had begun, offering both challenges and profound opportunities for growth. As the sun set on the days that followed, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The reunion had shifted the trajectory of his life, reminding him that family bonds, though tested by time and distance, endure. He embraced the uncertainty of the future, recognizing that each step forward would require patience, understanding, and humility. The experience reinforced his commitment to being present, compassionate, and engaged in the lives of all the children he loved. Both old and new, he knew that the journey was ongoing, that the work of rebuilding trust and connection would continue for months and years. Yet the progress made during the reunion provided a foundation for hope, a reminder that even long-held wounds can begin to heal when approached with honesty, empathy, and genuine care. The day had been a turning point, a testament to the resilience of human relationships and the enduring power of love, forgiveness, and understanding. The days following the reunion were filled with reflection, conversation, and careful steps toward rebuilding what had been broken. He felt a mix of relief and apprehension, knowing that while the first step had been taken, the journey was far from over. Each interaction with his first family required thought, patience, and a willingness to listen. He realized that the act of returning was only the beginning. The true work lay in proving, day by day, he could be trusted and that his love was genuine. His children began to reach out gradually, sending messages, making calls, and sharing stories from their lives. At first, the exchanges were cautious, measured, and careful, but with each passing week, they grew warmer and more open. They asked about his life, shared their achievements, and even invited him to participate in events that mattered to them. It was not perfect, and there were moments of hesitation and doubt, but progress was being made. He understood that this cautiousness was a reflection of the pain he had caused, and he accepted it fully, choosing patience over expectation. He also began introducing his first family to his son from the new life, carefully navigating the delicate balance of emotions. The children met, hesitantly at first, but gradually began to connect, sharing stories, laughter, and common experiences. It was a slow process, requiring sensitivity, understanding, and encouragement, but it was also filled with moments of genuine warmth. He watched with a mixture of pride and relief as bonds began to form, witnessing the power of family ties, even when separated by years and circumstances. His former wife played a crucial role in this process, facilitating communication and providing reassurance to the children. She did not erase the past, nor did she minimize the hurt, but she encouraged openness, honesty, and the possibility of reconciliation. Her strength and wisdom guided the interactions, creating an environment where trust could slowly be rebuilt. He observed her resilience and dedication with admiration, understanding the immense effort it took to nurture the children in the face of his absence. Over time, shared activities became a foundation for rebuilding relationships. Family dinners, outings, and simple moments together provided opportunities for connection, understanding, and joy. Each experience reinforced the bonds that had been weakened by years of absence. Laughter began to echo more frequently. Tears were shared without fear, and conversations became more natural. The family began to find a new rhythm, one that acknowledged the past, but focused on creating meaningful moments in the present. He made a conscious effort to be present in every interaction, listening attentively, responding with empathy, and demonstrating his commitment to their well-being. He avoided excuses and focused on actions, understanding that trust is earned through consistency and care. His children began to recognize his sincerity, observing the ways he invested in their lives and engaged with their experiences. Slowly, they began to embrace the possibility of a renewed relationship, one built on understanding, forgiveness, and mutual respect. The father also reflected on his personal growth during this process. He realized that the journey of reconciliation was not just about repairing relationships, but also about confronting his own limitations, mistakes, and emotional patterns. He learned to approach interactions with humility, patience, and openness, recognizing that true connection requires vulnerability and self-awareness. The process transformed him, deepening his understanding of love, responsibility, and the enduring impact of choices. As months passed, milestones became opportunities for connection. Birthdays, holidays, and family celebrations were shared, creating new memories that could coexist with the past. He took care to honor both families, ensuring that his presence brought joy without creating conflict. He observed the interactions between his children, noticing how they supported each other, shared experiences, and began to form bonds despite the years apart. These moments were small victories, but they carried profound significance, marking the gradual healing of old wounds. His son from the new family became an integral part of these gatherings, learning about his father's past, engaging with new relatives, and contributing to the evolving family dynamic. The boy observed the resilience of his father, the strength of his siblings, and the complexities of relationships that spanned decades. He learned the value of empathy, patience, and understanding, witnessing firsthand how love and forgiveness can bridge gaps that once seemed insurmountable. Throughout this period, conversations about the past continued, approached with care and sensitivity. The children expressed feelings of hurt, disappointment, and curiosity, while he responded with honesty, remorse, and a commitment to transparency. These discussions were challenging, often emotionally charged, but they were also necessary. They provided a platform for understanding, acknowledgement, and the gradual rebuilding of trust. Each conversation, each shared memory, contributed to the process of healing, reinforcing the idea that family bonds, though tested, can endure. He also took time to reflect on the broader lessons of this journey. He understood that life is unpredictable, that choices have long-term consequences, that reconciliation requires effort, patience, and humility. He realized that love is not static. It must be nurtured, expressed, and demonstrated through consistent actions. The process of reconnecting with his first family taught him about resilience, its empathy, and the profound power of forgiveness. As the years continued, the relationship strengthened. The family shared vacations, celebrations, and simple daily experiences, each contributing to the ongoing process of rebuilding trust and connection. The bonds between siblings, though formed later in life, grew strong, supported by mutual respect and shared understanding. The father observed these relationships with a sense of pride and fulfillment. Recognizing the resilience of his children and the enduring strength of family ties, he also reflected on the importance of presence, both physical and emotional. Being there for his children, listening, supporting, and engaging with their lives became the cornerstone of reconciliation. He understood that trust cannot be rushed, that forgiveness is a gradual process, and that meaningful relationships require consistent effort and care. Each day offered opportunities to reinforce these lessons, to contribute to the ongoing healing, and to strengthen the bonds that had been weakened by years of absence. The journey was not without challenges. There were moments of frustration, misunderstandings, and emotional setbacks. Yet each obstacle provided an opportunity for growth, learning, and deeper connection. He approached these moments with patience, humility, and a commitment to understanding, recognizing that the path to reconciliation is rarely smooth, but profoundly rewarding as the story unfolded. The father realized that the true measure of success was not in erasing the past, but in building a future grounded in honesty, empathy, and love. The process of reconnecting with his first family, while complex and emotionally demanding, had transformed him, deepened his understanding of human relationships, and reinforced the importance of family bonds. The journey of forgiveness and reconciliation became a defining aspect of his life, shaping his actions, choices, and perspective. In the end, the family found a new balance. The children embraced their father with a cautious but growing warmth, acknowledging the past while engaging in the present. The father learned to navigate the complexities of these relationships with care, commitment, and humility. Together, they created new memories, shared experiences, and moments of joy that bridged the gap of 20 years. The process was ongoing, requiring patience and dedication. But it was also filled with profound meaning, love, and the enduring power of family through this journey. He understood that life is a collection of choices, each with consequences that ripple through time. He learned that true reconciliation is built on honesty, empathy, and consistent effort. He witnessed the resilience of his children, the the strength of their mother, the capacity of human relationships to endure even after long periods of absence. The experience reinforced the idea that love, though tested, can be renewed, and that forgiveness, though challenging, offers profound opportunities for growth and connection. The father continued to nurture these relationships, participating fully in the lives of his children, supporting their dreams and sharing in their joys and sorrows. He observed the gradual strengthening of bonds, the development of trust, and the creation of a new family dynamic that honored both the past and the present. Through patience, care, and unwavering commitment, he contributed to the healing of wounds and the building of meaningful connections that would endure for the rest of their lives in the quiet moments. He reflected on the journey, recognizing the profound impact of his choices, the resilience of his family, and the transformative power of love and forgiveness. The return of his first family had left him speechless initially, overwhelmed by emotion, but ultimately it had provided an opportunity for redemption, growth, and the rebuilding of connections that had once seemed impossible. The story of loss, regret, and eventual reconciliation became a testament to the enduring strength of family bonds and the human capacity for understanding, compassion, and love.